Hey everybody, welcome back. We are today discussing how every single thing in our life from the time we are born until the time we pass is a disturbance. Everything is disturbing. Nothing continues to stay in a state of normalcy. Everything is changing, which means disturbances. And that is our topic today, Mr. Schmidt. And before I read the Oxford Dictionary of disturbance, and then we're going to discuss how we deal with disturbances, I just want to say hi. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? It's been a little while since we've gotten a radio room, so I like to make a first comment on what you said from birth on as a disturbance. I think if you're doing the conception part right, it should be a disturbance as well.
I mean, really, everything is a disturbance. And it's something that just popped in my head that I thought was worthy of discussion because, uh, part of what we do here is try to figure out how to deal with all of the issues of life, from relationships to, uh, financial security, food security, spirituality, why we're even here. All these things we're always discussing. What we consider the most important things to be being a human. And it just occurred to me that we're always struggling with all these little issues that come up. Like how do we, pay for this? Oh God, my tires are bald. I need new tires here. Oh, I just saved up for my kids next semester, and then all of a sudden we got a roof leak. I got to fix it. I mean, there's all these things that constantly are causing stress and disturbances, and how do we deal with them? How do we overcome? How do we survive and thrive? These are the issues, and I thought, man, it's just nonstop from the second you're squeezed out of the womb. It's a massive disturbance from the second right before when you're all cozy and warm and loving the safety and security of everything being provided for you to be thrown out into the madness.
Yeah, to this cold, cruel world. I mean, I know babies don't really care for it. They start screaming as soon as they come out. They're disturbed as soon as they come out. I mean, I can't blame them. I mean, as a man, you get popped out and then you spend the rest of your life trying to get right back in.
It's true, but it's so funny when I started laughing because the idea is sort of comical in that you are so disturbed as you come out, as you're growing up and becoming a man, a woman. The whole formative years, pre-puberty, and then all of your adolescent period where you don't know anything about anything, but you think you know it all, and everything is a disturbance. Everything is bothersome. The way somebody just looked at you in the high school hallway, to your girl ignored you or did not ignore you or whatever. Everything is a disturbance.
I think it starts way sooner than that. I mean, anybody that's had like any amount of small children from the time they were just a baby to a toddler, they don't want to be disrupted taking to stop to take a nap. That's a disruption. They don't want to do that. That's completely out of their norm or whatever their new norm is. But then you got to think what you were talking about with disturbances. Everything is a disturbance. When they're playing with the toy, that's disturbing the state of the toy. They have wear and tear on the toy. Even just to live, you're disturbing the natural environment you're either taking from, and then you're giving back to the natural environment. And a lot of the ways we live life here in the States in the 21st century, a lot of that nature that should be going back, or part of life, that disturbance should go back into nature. It's not. It's stored in some facility, or we throw it out and have a Texas-sized plastic bin in the ocean.
Yeah, it's really is a strange idea to or realization to think everything we do is a disturbance. You say a kid's playing with a little Tonka truck or whatever it is. Well, he or she just disturbed probably the parents, probably any guest, anybody else running a little truck around everywhere. Now you're either happy and laughing at the kid, or you're really disturbed because you were doing something else and now they're making a bunch of racket. Either way, it's a disturbance for good or bad. It disturbed the previous condition, and I think it goes to the whole heart of what we philosophically discuss here is how do we deal with disturbances where we always, to the best of our ability, keep an even keel, try not to let the highs and lows create emotional imbalances, that we can be steady and calm in the face of the myriad of disturbances that happen all day, every day, in big and, of course, less dramatic instances throughout every second of our entire life.
I think a lot when we're talking about disturbances, most people think of disturbances as something negative. Like I think people have a overwhelming tendency to see all these little small things that go wrong in their life. Like you said, there's a roof leak, or the kid's up playing and this, oh, I can't get anything right. This is disturbing. This is going that way. And they fail to mention all the good things that go right. Like, oh man, I just got the last of the milk for my coffee, or, I caught that one green light. They focus on the red lights, and they don't see how many green lights they get. Or, they might have passed a cop and he wasn't paying attention. They were going a little too fast. Most people don't ever mention that. But those small little disturbances for the eel, I think people fixate on that, and they look at their lives as more of a downtrending cycle instead of all the highs that can happen. For instance, this year I thought, there's a lot of things that I thought were going to go my way that have not yet gone my way. And I would be focused on, man, look at these disturbances that have messed up. This didn't go right. That didn't go right. But then I start thinking and putting down to pen and paper, which we have discussed several times on our channel, the benefits of writing for yourself, your own personal health and well-being, and really mental security. Plus, it's just a good exercise that takes you away from your electronic devices, away from your television. You focus really on you. But you write down the things that have gone right. Like, I wasn't expecting this to go right. Man, that turned out really good. And that was really good too. And maybe I'm not exactly where I thought I was in 2021 because, the world's still in crisis and that's going wrong. And I can't do this or I can't do that. But I think it's important, well, I know it's important to focus on those good things that have happened, those positive disturbances that you did not see coming, that I don't think most people really stop and think about, like those good things that have happened. Like sometimes, that kid plan could disturb you in a negative way. Like, I got to get this work done. But if you really stop and think about it, I don't mind staying up an hour or two later to get that work done if I'll stop and take a break now and play with that kid. And then that work an hour or two later might end up being more productive because you gave yourself a break mentally and physically, and you allowed yourself to go with that disturbance instead of riding that wave down, just taking a break, just wave off like, I'm going to enjoy this because that kid playing with the Tonka truck is not going to last. So I think you should overwhelmingly see some of those disturbances for positive and not negative.
You make a very good point, because that was what I was thinking whenever I say the highs and lows of disturbances. And I think a vast majority of people have a tendency to immediately go toward the negative. And there are negative disturbances and the positive disturbances. And there are ones that are just indifferent. You just let them roll right off your back and don't pay attention. That just happens. So I did not read the Oxford Dictionary definition of disturbance. It is an actions that you stop what you are doing or that upset the normal state that something is in. And whenever we say that, like right now, this is our normal state. We're sitting here discussing. We are practicing the art of conversation to boil down to a certain truth, what we try to do on a regular basis. And if somebody just came and started knocking on the door, that would be disturbing. or all of a sudden the AC started blowing out extreme heat. That would be disturbing. I mean, there's just a lot of disturbance. What if the table fell over? I mean, there's a million things. All of a sudden the battery goes dead. And how do we deal with it? And I think we could even go back to our big series on Marcus Aurelius and what you said. Write down those things. Write down the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly. Help that be a part of your venting, to vent it out. Not that anybody's ever going to read it, or it's you. It's a conversation with you. It's for you to put down in words and evaluate your day's circumstances, your life circumstances, all on your own, and to figure out, is this as of a big a deal as I'm making it out to be? Am I allowing my anxiety level to overwhelm me when it shouldn't? You're like, oh God, I got to pay rent today. It's due today. Well, that's pretty stressful, and you have to take a minute and pause and think, okay, well, how can I do it? How can I make this better? Do I have to go, call my brother Trey and say, hey, I'm coming over to sleep on your couch for a month till I figure out what I'm going to do? I mean, but in the end of the day, most people still have a roof over their head. They have some sort of protection and safety. Not everybody. There's got a lot of problems in the world. But life is typically not as bad as we make it out to be in our mind.
No, one thing I like to think about, especially we're talking about these big disturbances. No news is ever as good or as ill as it first appears. It always sounds so bad at first or so good at first until you let some of these things sit and soak in. And I think that is another great practice for everyone out there to just, let's like to Thomas Jefferson. If you're angry, count to 10. If you're really angry, count to 100. But do that for all major news items.
Yeah, I mean, basically there's more evil caused by things that have never happened.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Like, I was thinking the other day, somebody mentioned something about jealousy, and I've never understood jealousy. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And I just asked him, I was like, well, what world problem has ever been solved by jealousy?
None.
Has anything ever been fixed? Has anything ever even been prevented by jealousy? No.
Makes it worse.
Oh, 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, you let that little disturbance in your head say, oh, this could happen, or this can happen, or this can happen. But it hasn't happened, and even if it did happen, would it really be the end of the world?
Right.
I mean, some of those things come out to be for the better anyway.
A lot of things that happen that you think are really bad end up making your life infinitely better. You're stronger. You're
and if you don't believe me, just listen to country music and you'll figure it out.
Duh. Mama got ran over by a damned old train. Everybody's still happy and singing.
That's right.
I just think it's fascinating that we do allow all these disturbances to fill us with anxiety, to make it where we have a hard time going to sleep because our minds are racing. Like, oh God, I gotta go deal with this employee or boss or client or whatever it is. I gotta stock boxes all day. Whatever is stressing you out. We have to find just a few moments every day, whether it is to write down, to reflect, or whether it's to sit and be quiet and think about things, like really critically think and look at your life. Try to be an observer of yourself.
Well, I like what you just said, to be an observer of yourself. And when you're worried about what's stressing you out, I like to think of what you just said there. I got a mental image of a pond, a nice, peaceful, tranquil pond, and somebody throws a rock in it. Well, you can either watch those ripples spread into the end, or you can get frustrated and mad and stress yourself out and start banging and slapping the water yourself, and that's just making it all the worse. I think a lot of the disturbances that most people in first world countries suffer from is within. It's not so much the exterior events that are really taking place, it's how we deal, how we compartmentalize, and how we digest these things that are actually happening. I think we cause ourselves undue amount of stress for really small things that could have been avoided, much like the jealousy thing. I mean, that's that little stone in the pond that's creating that ripple. Well, what do you do with that? Do you wait and let it smooth itself back out, or you go in there and worry and stress?
Start throwing a handful of rocks.
Yeah. I mean, if you miss a night of sleep over something so small, what else is going to be wrong, and what else is going to make you more easily disturbed in the end? So that one little thing has upset you. Well, you lose a night of sleep over it. Well, now you're on the edge and you're cranky, and then you filled yourself with what's the number one drug in the States is caffeine. That can put you more on the edge. So then when somebody, most of the time, it's a loved one that you snap at, well, now you got a whole nother set of problems because you've just disturbed them from your disturbing. You didn't mean to snap at them. You wanted to snap out and lash out at the world. But what happened, and what does happen, is you disturb those people that are closest to you. And if they have a hard time dealing with those disturbances, well, then now you're just in a huge cycle where there's just that one drop into the pond, and now you've got the Category 5 hurricane coming in like Katrina hitting New Orleans over some things that could have just been really small. I mean, and I've thought about that quite a lot in the last couple weeks, just from other things that have gone in my life, and I'm like, oh, that was bad, but it's okay. It's gonna pick back up.
It ain't too bad.
And if it doesn't pick up, you'll figure out how to deal with that too.
There's always a solution. There's always a way out of a problem. Sometimes we just can't see it, and normally all of our darkest days mean that the sun is about to shine upon us. It's not always that way, but it is more often than not. Whenever, most of the times in my life when I've been really down, really depressed, which happens, I think, to all of us, and we all have tragedies and big events that really kind of shape, and they don't kind of, they do shape how we see the world and see ourselves. And we can either let that take us over and consume us, or we can figure out how to do some mental martial arts and become intellectually defensive and really figure out how to subdue that and overcome all of those emotions inside us, even the good emotions. Sometimes we can get on a big high on these great things that are happening in our lives, and boy, that's about the time you need to step back and go, I better not get on a high horse. I better not think I'm so smart. I better not think this or that, because the good means the bad's coming, and the bad means that the good's coming. So all these disturbances means we need to learn how to sail, and we need to sail as smooth as we can through all of it, and not let the highs crash us down into the lows where we think we can't get back up, and then when we do, we shoot back up, and then we shoot. It's just an emotional and physical roller coaster ride that we can avoid. We can learn how to gently sail over the waves without bashing ourselves head first and just looking for a stone to go run into. I mean, it's true. And I just think that's the whole point of life's disturbances, is figuring out how to take a deep breath. Just do simple breathing exercises makes a big difference. Just stop, take a deep breath when you're mad at whomever, yourself. I think if you're mad at somebody else, you've really got problems with yourself. Yeah.
Well, I can see that in two lights. I think that it's very important for people to take responsibility for one's own actions, but not everything is always your fault either. I think that a lot of people get into that where they want to take all the blame. And that ends up being just as harmful as someone that wants to take none of the blame at all. I think it takes a lot of
Balance.
balance, mental agility to stay on that beam of was I right, was I wrong? And I think a lot of those decisions where you think someone has wronged you or you have wronged someone, to again go back and write and think about how you were on that line. Was I a yes in the wrong or was I yes in the right? And then after you figured out how to deal with that disturbance in your head, then how do you physically deal with that disturbance? I mean, what do you do? What actions do you take? Do you just separate yourself from that? Do you pick up and give somebody another chance? Do you say that maybe it was a bad day for them? How do you internalize that struggle?
Well, I think it all starts with what we were talking about a little bit ago, was trying to objectively look at yourself from afar, looking in. I think that is really important to do. It's very difficult to do. It takes a lot of practice. I am no expert, but I do practice that a lot. I do practice a lot now, especially over the past year or two. Really, how does my wife perceive me and my actions? Like, if I'm in the kitchen and all of a sudden she's putting up the dishes, my first thought is I want her to instantly know that I'm here to help. So I go over there and start helping her, or whatever she's doing. I want to make sure that my energy and my actions speak for how I feel on the inside. So I try to make it where there are more good disturbances than there ever would be bad.
I'm glad you brought that up because that goes back to something in my life. Me and my wife were talking the other night, and we were just thinking, what are some of the things that I do for you that I don't do? Like, for instance, it's very rare if I don't get my wife a cup of coffee in the morning. And I was thinking, I was trying to stop and think, well, what are some of the things that you do for me that, I don't do, that I don't ever even think about getting done for myself? And we sat down and we just had a good discussion between the both of us, and we had a lot of laughs in between. It's like, hey, I do this, and it wasn't a competition of, hey, I do this for you and you do this for me. It was just trying to sit and think, what are some of the things that I do for you and you do for me? And really for a whole week, we just come up to each other and we're like, oh, that's one of the things you don't do. And I'm like, man, that's right. And I would say something. She's like, wow, that's a good point. And you don't realize some of that give and take. And I also think that is an important, good, open line of communication that you have with maybe not even your spouse, but if you live with roommates.
Sure.
Anything that just a communication between two or more people, and realize what you do and don't do, and maybe that you figure out some of those things that you don't do enough, and like, I should probably pick up a little bit of slack there because you do that for me more than I really help, and I need to do more. So, I think it's a good practice to figure out those little ways in which your partner or your roommate or somebody close to you helps pick up where you leave down or your disturbances.
I think that both of y'all should be commended on that kind of exercise, because it is just as important as breathing exercises, as trying to see yourself objectively from afar, meditation, all these things. That is part of the toolbox of helping out with a relationship, no matter who it is that those open lines of thought and communication that most people don't really even want to sit down and ask, because they don't even want to know what they do or don't do right, and people don't like to examine themselves. And if there's more than one person ever involved, there's going to be a larger disturbance. We are our own disturbance, and you have another person, there's always going to be another disturbance. So just the addition of additional people makes the much more disturbing. So when you can have those kind of practices in an open, fun, loving way, man, it makes a big difference in knowing who and what you are and how every relationship is its own entity. Like our relationship as brothers is its own thing.
Yeah.
And, we have other brothers, and our personal relationship with them is not really associated with the other brother. It's that thing. You and Ashley, your wife, y'all are y'all's unit. My relationship with Ashley is not the same as yours. And it's an interesting thing because we create, kind of like, to use your rock analogy, like I have a relationship with this brother. It's like throwing a rock over there, a big rock, and then there's a nice smooth rock over there with you. And so it's there's a lot of differences, and to recognize and be able to talk to those people in your life in that way that y'all did is fantastic. So I take my hat off to you, sir, if I was wearing one.
I just think it's important just to have some of those just conversations with someone that's close to you, because I think we get caught up too much in, how was your day? How was your day? That
Meaningless.
Yeah, and it just gets old and dull over time. So you have to think, how do I still have a meaningful conversation with someone that you're around all the time?
Yeah, and it's really easy to take people for granted. It's really easy to think and to assume what their day was like, and to automatically in your mind or in your heart belittle their stresses because they seem insignificant to you. Those are really easy things to do with people or are in deep relationships with. And that's something that you have to stay on top of and be constantly aware. Or if you don't, you end up in the long run creating larger disturbances that otherwise could have been avoided and been a positive disturbance, and been able to ride over those waves a lot more gently, instead of everywhere you go in, you're jumping into the pond, belly flopping at everything.
Or, if you have some of those disturbances, it's just nice to have someone help you through it. Like, for example, I've got a brother over there in a white shirt that told me he was sick a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, okay, he's sick. He said he just didn't feel like doing the show. I'm like, okay, he's just a little sick. He was a lot sicker than I thought, and I'm like, well, maybe we should go make him some food and bring it over. Like, I didn't know he was so sick. I just thought he was just, had a cough. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I had full-blown pneumonia, and wow, I tell you, you people that have never had pneumonia, geez, does it suck. I mean, geez.
Yeah, so instead of, internalizing all your little strife there, you could have been like, hey, I don't feel good. I need a cuddle. And I'm
Please
like,
come hold me.
I'll come huddle you in your time of disturbance. I'll come over.
And I'm still trying to get over this cough I'm at the very end of. This pneumonia crap. It's bad. But you're right. It's nice whenever you're feeling down physically with some kind of illness or anything else, to have people around you that you've established such a relationship with, whether only or primarily just good disturbances, where they want to come disturb you again with bringing you food and
or just sharing a kind word. Hey, you're gonna make it through it. You're all right.
Right. Those things are really, really important. And kind words are a disturbance.
They are.
I mean, people don't realize that everything is a disturbance, and it's how you perceive it and how you internalize it that makes it, in the end, good or bad.
Yeah, a lot of that is perception.
Sure, and that is what it is. And Mr. Schmidt, do you have anything else to add? Because I think that was a great topic, and I hope that all of y'all enjoyed that. And, as always, we always try to dive into things that most people don't think about on a regular basis, or if ever, and bring it out and talk about it, because I believe that makes us better people, and it helps us on this journey of life do better. And we are too. Before Mr. Schmidt gets his last words, go check us out at mysticsoftexas.com. We have all of our videos organized there. Of course, we're on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, all of them, all the alternatives, and it's fantastic places to go and support, and there's a lot of great content on all of them. So thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our discussion on disturbances. And Mr. Schmidt, what do you got?
I think that's it for me. Everybody out there, have a good day.